In the last video, I told you guys that the Texans had just flipped the script on the entire AFC. And honestly, I didn't even realize how much things were about to spin out of control after that. Because everything I said back then, everything I warned you about, just got even crazier after the Week 12 Sunday and Monday games wrapped up. The AFC didn't just shift a little bit. It didn't just tilt slightly toward chaos. It straight up blew open like a damn grenade went off. And right now, the Chargers are standing right in the middle of the blast radius, trying to keep their footing. So let's talk. Let's really sit down and go through this, because I'm going to break down everything that just happened, everything that changed, and what it means for the Chargers moving forward. And I'm telling you right now, if you thought last week was intense, if you thought the playoff picture was complicated before, man, buckle up, because it just got about 5 times more insane. What's up, Chargers fans? Welcome to the NFL Playbook Chargers. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. This channel is all about breaking down everything you need to know about the Bolts. So let's start from the beginning. Everything was going fine. The Chargers were 7-3, and we were predicting that their Week 11 game against the Jaguars would be an easy win. But instead, that turned out to be a brutal loss. If the Chargers win that game, they would be straight into the playoff. But now they are struggling and competing with multiple teams. Then came Thursday night, Texans versus Bills. Now, I talked about this already, but I need to say it again because that game was the trigger that set off this entire chain reaction. The Texans walked in with their backup quarterback, which normally would mean trouble, right? But instead of trouble, their defense absolutely choked life out of Buffalo's offense. Josh Allen couldn't get into rhythm, couldn't sustain drives, couldn't push the ball downfield the way we're used to seeing. The Texans beat them 23-19, and the second that final whistle blew, the entire AFC playoff order scrambled like eggs. Chargers moved up to the 5th seed, Jaguars bumped into the 6th spot, Bills dropped all the way down to 7th, and suddenly the wild card race started looking like a packed parking lot at Walmart on Black Friday. Completely jammed, bumper to bumper, nowhere to move. But here's the thing nobody realized at that moment. The Texans beating the Bills wasn't the big twist. That was just the appetizer. The real story, the one that changed absolutely everything, came Sunday when the AFC North turned into complete anarchy. Before this week, the Steelers were cruising on top of their division at 6-4. They weren't a juggernaut. They weren't dominating anybody, but they were steady. They were doing enough. And because they were division leaders, nobody was thinking about them in the wildcard race. The Ravens were 5-5 and basically an afterthought. The Browns were down, the Bengals were down. AFC North felt stable. Then, boom, Ravens beat the Jets and jumped to 6-5. Steelers lose to the Bears of all teams and fall to 6-5. Suddenly, because of divisional records, the Ravens leapfrog the Steelers and take the AFC North lead, and Steelers get shoved back into the wildcard pit. And man, let me just tell you, them falling back into that pile is like throwing a live alligator into a bathtub already filled with sharks. It just makes everything worse for everybody. Because now, instead of 4 teams fighting for those wildcard spots, Chargers, Jaguars, Bills, Texans, you suddenly add 2 more threats. The Steelers, who now have urgency like their season's on fire, and the Chiefs, who somehow have slipped to 6-5, but are still dangerous as hell just because of who they are and who their quarterback is. So, when the dust settled after Week 12, the wildcard picture didn't just get crowded, it got claustrophobic. We're talking Chargers at 7-5 sitting in the 5th spot, Jaguars at 7-5 sitting in the 6th, Bills at 7-5 barely clinging on to the 7th, and then right behind them, Texans at 6-5, Steelers at 6-5, Chiefs at 6-5. That is 6 teams competing for 3 seats, and one of those seats is practically guaranteed to be taken by whoever finishes second in the AFC North, so really it's even tighter than it looks. The Chargers are technically in control because they have the best conference record and the best divisional record among all the wildcard teams, but that advantage is thin as tissue paper. One wrong move and they drop straight to the 7th seed or even out of the playoff picture entirely. Now here's the part that gets really interesting. The Jaguars beating the Cardinals moved them up to the 6th seed, and suddenly the Chargers, Jaguars, and Bills are all 7-5. But because of the way the tiebreakers work, the Chargers come out on top. They've got the best division record, the best AFC record, and even though they lost to the Jaguars head-to-head, their other numbers pushed them ahead. The Bills get pushed to 7th because they've lost too many AFC games to mediocre teams, and that matters big time in tiebreakers. But when the Steelers dropped out of the division lead, that automatically meant one thing. One of the wildcard seats is gone. Because whoever wins the AFC North gets in no matter what, and whoever finishes second is almost guaranteed to end up in the wildcard mix. So that leaves 2 real seats left, not 3. And that's when you realize how brutal the next 6 weeks are going to be for the Chargers. Their schedule is not friendly. They've got the Raiders, which should be a win, but should be doesn't mean much in the NFL. Then they got the Eagles, a team that hits like a truck with a defensive front that can absolutely make Herbert's life miserable if the offensive line isn't playing at its absolute best. Then they get the Chiefs, and I know what you're thinking, that the Chiefs aren't the same this year, that Mahomes and that offense are struggling, and that's true, they are. But I will never, and I mean never, call the Chiefs game easy. Not with Andy Reid, not with Mahomes, not with that culture they've built. But still, it's a winnable game. After that, the Chargers get the Dallas Cowboys, who've been falling apart lately and don't look anything like the contenders people thought they'd be earlier in the season. Then comes the big one, the Chargers versus Texans. And I'm telling you right now, that game might decide everything. And finally, you've got the Broncos, who are playing some of the best football in the league right now and are absolutely no joke. Now look at everyone else's remaining schedule. The Texans have one of the easier paths. They've got the Colts twice, the Raiders, the Cardinals, the Chiefs, and the Chargers. They could realistically go 4-2 or even 5-1 if things break right for them. The Bills, meanwhile, have a straight-up nightmare ahead. They've got the Steelers, Bengals, Patriots, Browns, Eagles, and Jets. That is a gauntlet. There's a world where the Bills collapse to 9-7. The Chiefs also have a rough schedule. Colts, Texans, Chargers, Titans, Broncos, and Raiders. All AFC opponents except one, which means every loss hits maximum impact in tiebreakers. Meanwhile, the Jaguars have only one really tough game left and could easily hit 10 or 11 wins. And the Steelers, man, the Steelers are basically in a do-or-die situation. Their next game against the Bills is everything. If they lose that, they fall to 6-6, and their chances nosedive. If they win it, they drag Buffalo down to 7-5 and flip the entire wildcard race again. But let's bring it back to the Chargers, because everything ultimately comes down to what they do, not what anybody else does. They have the advantage right now, but that advantage is tiny. They absolutely cannot afford to drop silly AFC games. They can't lose to the Raiders, they can't fall apart against the Chiefs, and they cannot walk into that Texans game at anything less than 9-5 or, at the very worst, 8-6. Because that Texans matchup isn't just another game. That's the tiebreaker game. That's the one that decides who gets the head-to-head leverage. If both teams finish 10-7, the winner of that game is the one who goes into the playoffs. It's that simple. And here's something Chargers fans don't want to admit, but I'm going to say it anyway because it's the truth. This entire season comes down to the offense finally waking up and finding consistency. The defense has been carrying the load. They've stepped up against the Chiefs. They've stepped up in big moments. They've played smart football. They've kept games within reach. But the offense, man, one week they look like they could drop 40 on anybody, and the next week they look completely lost. They start slow. They struggle to pick up first downs. The run game disappears out of nowhere. Herbert is running for his life behind a shaky line, and everything starts spiraling. It's not talent. It's not scheme. It's rhythm. The Chargers offense hasn't found rhythm all season, and now they need it more than ever. But the good news is this. The Chargers are absolutely good enough to make the playoffs. They are absolutely good enough to beat the Chiefs again. They are absolutely good enough to take out the Cowboys. They have everything they need to get to 10 wins and lock up a wildcard spot. The path is steep, the competition is brutal, and the margin for error is tiny, but the door is open. It's right there, and the Chargers have the talent to walk through it. So the question I want to ask you is this: if the Chargers finish 10-7, do you think they deserve to make it? And if all these teams end up tied, who do you think gets knocked out? Because someone is getting their heart broken. Someone is going home after doing everything right. And I don't want it to be the Chargers. I want this team in the playoffs. I want this defense to get a shot at shutting down some of the best offenses in the AFC. I want Herbert to get a chance to punch back at the narrative. I want the Chargers to show the league that they're not just talented, they're tough. But now it's up to them. 6 games left. No more slip-ups, no more slow starts, no more excuses. This is where the season gets defined. This is where you find out who you really are. And the Chargers right now, they're standing right on the edge, alive, in control, and capable of finishing the job. but they've got to take it. Nobody's handing out freebies in the AFC this year. If you want in, you've got to fight for every inch. And I'm ready for it. I think this team is ready for it. And if they can pull this off, man, that's a moment we'll be talking about for a long time.